The most enjoyable aspects of my role as the editor of the Cambridge Handbooks for Language would be winning prizes, which we've done quite a few of recently, which is great because it's a kind of validation of the quality of the handbooks. And also for me, it's a learning experience because they're often taking me in areas which I'm not familiar with. For example, last year I edited a book on teaching very young learners. And I've not taught even young learners, let alone very young learners. So, it was a steep learning curve. And then there's at the other end of it, of course, seeing the books out, seeing them on the stand, and seeing the writers themselves promoting their own books at conferences like this one here in Brighton. It's great to see that the life history of a book, which may well have started with having attended a conference presentation 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and then the suggestion to write the book is in production, it comes out, and then the follow-up talks which are promoting it. It's the kind of the life cycle of the book. It's very, very gratifying to be part of that whole process. I'm often asked about the value of print books over digital materials that you can download from the internet, for example, and whether print books are intrinsically better. It's worth mentioning, of course, that the print books that we produce, the handbooks and the pocket books, do have e-versions. I think it's less a question of the medium, it's more a question of the quality, and that print texts, by definition, and particularly print texts published by Cambridge, have a long process of review before they even get accepted, and a rigorous editing process, so that you always know that at the end that print book has been thoroughly vetted and it is reliable in every sense, both in terms of the quality of its production, the writing, and the usefulness of its ideas. That's not always the case with stuff that you just download from the internet. So it's not, as I say, whether it's digital or print, it's really what was the process that went into the production of this book, and a print version often has a longer pedigree in terms of the processes that went into it and the number of people who are implicated in its production. The question as to whether digital will take over the classroom, I think, ignores the fact that, in a sense, digital has taken over the classroom. I mean, digital media are part of our way of life, and the classroom should not be separated from the outside world in that sense. The sooner that digital tools are normalized, that is, they're just taken for granted, the better, just as books are normalized. I mean, nobody sort of is surprised by the existence of books in classrooms or maps on classroom walls. And it's the question of what use that put to it. But I think we've got to remember that education is not simply delivering information. It's not just about data. It's using that data. It's processing the data. It's putting to language to some kind of use. So it seems to me where digital is best used is where it is actually mediating the use of the data, mediating the use of the language. So when what digital means, whatever they are, whether they're mobile phones, whether it's Skype, whether it's whatever, if it's putting people into contact with each other and that they're actually either writing or speaking the language, then that seems to be the best use of the media, not simply accessing facts about the language. I'm often asked how my impact on the series or my personal stamp differs from previous editors, for example, Michael Swan and Penny Earr, and I would say actually not a lot, because I think it was a well-established tradition, the handbooks, when I came on board, and my job certainly was really to maintain that tradition. I think one of the things that's perhaps different now is that after those initial years, topics were rather general. There'd be a book about listening, for example, or there'd be a book about speaking, or there'd be a book about writing, but we've started to home in on more specific areas, inevitably. And of course, the influence of new technologies has been apparent in a number of the titles, particularly Graham Stanley's book on technology and English language teaching. But there are areas that I was always very interested in, which I felt were underrepresented in not our series alone, but generally in ELT publishing, and one was the lexical turn, if you like. So I was very pleased that Leo Sullivan was able to pick up the challenge on that one. Then there are areas that, in a sense, have been away for a long time. They were around in the past, they've come back into focus, and I think one of those is the use of the students' L1 in the classroom. So it was very gratifying to be able to enlist Philip Kerr to write the book on translating and own language use, and which I think is a real landmark book in the sense that it rehabilitates an area of methodology which has been too long neglected. So those are some of the, I wouldn't say it's my personal stamp, but those are books that I'm particularly proud of.